The rain fell mercilessly on the streets of Seattle, each drop echoing the shattering of Seo-yeon Mitchell's world. She stood frozen on the glistening pavement, clutching a blood-stained note in her trembling hands, her white coat soaked through. Behind her, paramedics worked frantically over a body sprawled on the wet asphalt. The neon signs of Chinatown blurred through her tears, their cyan glow reflecting off the puddles like shattered dreams. Just 3 hours ago, she had been laughing at a gallery opening. Now, Jae-won Kim lay dying in the street, and this note in her hands suggested everything she knew about him was a lie. The note was simple, written in Jae-won's precise handwriting. "Seo-yeon, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I'm sorry for everything. The truth is in the red envelope at my apartment. Code 0324. Your birthday. It was always about protecting you, even if you hate me for it." Seo-yeon's mind reeled. Protecting her from what? They had been dating for 8 months, a whirlwind romance that began when he literally caught her as she tripped on the steps of the Seattle Art Museum. He was a software engineer, quiet and methodical, nothing mysterious about him. Or so she thought. Detective Marcus Brooks approached her, his weathered face grave in the rain. "Miss Mitchell, we need your statement. The witnesses say the car came straight at you. Mr. Kim pushed you out of the way and took the hit himself." Seo-yeon nodded numbly, unable to form words. Marcus had been investigating what he called unusual activity in the tech sector for months, but Seo-yeon never connected it to Jae-won. Now, standing in the rain with her dead boyfriend's cryptic note, she wondered what else she had missed. Across the street, obscured by the downpour and the flashing lights of emergency vehicles, a man watched from the shadows of an apartment building. Taehyun Carter's jaw clenched as he observed Seo-yeon's anguished face. He had warned Jae-won this would happen. He had begged his best friend to tell Seo-yeon the truth before it was too late. But Jae-won insisted that ignorance would keep her safe. Now Jae-won was gone, and Seo-yeon would soon learn everything. Taehyun stepped back into the darkness, knowing that once she opened that envelope, she would come looking for answers. Seo-yeon finally allowed the paramedics to check her over, though her body had gone numb to everything except the weight of the note in her pocket. As they wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, she caught sight of someone watching from across the street. A tall figure in a dark coat, face hidden by shadows, but something about his posture seemed familiar. Before she could focus, he disappeared into an alley. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "He loved you enough to die for you. But do you love him enough to uncover why?" As the ambulance carrying Jae-won's body pulled away, sirens wailing into the night, Seo-yeon made a decision that would alter the course of her life. She would go to his apartment tonight. She would open that envelope. And she would find out what Jae-won Kim had been hiding, even if the truth destroyed the memory of the man she loved. What she didn't know was that across the city, in a luxury penthouse, someone else was also preparing for her to learn the truth. Someone who had everything to lose if the contents of that red envelope ever came to light. Seo-yeon's hands shook as she entered the code on Jae-won's apartment door. 0324, her birthday. The lock clicked open, and she stepped into the space that had once felt like a second home. Now it felt like a stranger's territory. The familiar scent of his cologne lingered in the air, making her chest tighten with grief. She moved through the dark living room, her wet shoes leaving prints on the hardwood floor. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Where would he hide something he desperately wanted her to find? The bedroom felt sacred, untouched. Seo-yeon opened his closet, pushing aside suits and shirts until her fingers found a small safe hidden behind a false panel. Her heart pounded as she entered the same code. Inside, a red envelope sat alone, thick with contents. She pulled it out with trembling fingers and sank onto his bed. The envelope wasn't sealed. Inside were photographs, documents, and a flash drive. The first photo made her blood run cold. It was her, taken from a distance, outside her office 3 years ago. Before she ever met Jae-won. Document after document revealed a truth she couldn't comprehend. Jae-won hadn't accidentally met her at the museum. He had been assigned to watch her. Protect her. The papers mentioned something called Project Meridian and her father's name repeatedly. Her father, who died in a car accident when she was 19. Seo-yeon's vision blurred as she read Jae-won's handwritten notes in the margins. Cannot tell her. Orders are clear. But how long can I protect someone I'm falling in love with? Her tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. A sound from the living room made her freeze. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate. Seo-yeon quickly stuffed everything back into the envelope and looked for a way out. The footsteps grew closer. She pressed herself against the wall beside the bedroom door, holding her breath. The door creaked open, and a familiar voice cut through the darkness. Seo-yeon, I know you're here. We need to talk before they find you. It was the voice from her nightmares and dreams. Taehyun Carter stepped into the dim light. You. Seo-yeon's voice was barely a whisper, recognition flooding through her. She had met Taehyun exactly twice. Both times, Jae-won had been tense, cutting their encounters short with weak excuses. Now she understood why. You knew. You knew everything, didn't you? Taehyun's expression was pained, his dark eyes reflecting genuine remorse. He took a step closer, and she noticed he was holding a gun at his side. Not pointed at her, but present. A warning or protection, she couldn't tell which. Your father didn't die in an accident, Seo-yeon. He was murdered because of what he discovered. Jae-won was hired to watch you, to make sure you didn't dig into your father's past. But he fell in love with you instead. Taehyun's voice cracked slightly. And now that he's dead, the people who killed your father think you know too much. That red envelope? It just painted a target on your back. We need to leave. Right now. Seo-yeon backed away from Taehyun, her grip tightening on the red envelope. Why should I trust you? You're part of whatever this is. Her voice trembled with anger and fear. Taehyun lowered the gun completely, setting it on the dresser between them as a gesture of peace. Because Jae-won made me promise to keep you safe if anything happened to him. I tried to convince him to tell you the truth months ago, but he refused. He thought loving you from the shadows was enough. The pain in his eyes seemed genuine, but Seo-yeon had believed Jae-won's eyes too, and look where that led. My father was a research scientist. He worked on medical technology, not whatever conspiracy you're suggesting. Seo-yeon clutched the envelope to her chest like armor. Taehyun moved to the window, checking the street below with practiced efficiency. Your father discovered something in his research that threatened very powerful people. Tech billionaires who were using his medical algorithms for something else entirely. Something illegal. He turned back to her, his jaw tight. Jae-won and I worked for them. We were corporate security, eliminating problems. Your father was supposed to be a problem. But Jae-won couldn't go through with it. The room spun around Seo-yeon. You're saying Jae-won was sent to kill my father? Taehyun shook his head quickly. No. He was sent to surveil him. But when the order came down to eliminate the threat, Jae-won warned your father instead. That's why they staged the car accident. They did it themselves when Jae-won refused. Seo-yeon's knees weakened, and she sat heavily on the bed. Everything she knew about her father's death, about Jae-won, about her own life, was built on lies. Taehyun's phone buzzed, and his expression darkened. They're coming. We have 3 minutes, maybe less. Seo-yeon stood abruptly, decision crystallizing through her shock. I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me who they are. Taehyun grabbed the gun and moved toward her with urgent intensity. Harrison Chen. Your father's former business partner. He's now CEO of NextGen Technologies, worth billions. He's the one who wanted your father dead, and now he wants that envelope. The name hit Seo-yeon like a physical blow. Harrison Chen. Uncle Harrison, who sent flowers on her birthday every year. Who had held her at her father's funeral. Who had offered her a job at NextGen just last month. No. Uncle Harrison loved my father. They built their company together. But even as she said it, memories surfaced. Her father's late-night arguments on the phone. The way Harrison's smile never reached his eyes at the funeral. How he always asked if her father had left her any research notes or files. Taehyun's hand wrapped around her wrist, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the urgency. Seo-yeon, we're out of time. Trust me or don't, but if you stay here, you'll die just like Jae-won did. Just like your father did. Headlights flooded through the window, followed by the sound of car doors slamming. Multiple vehicles. Taehyun pulled Seo-yeon toward the bedroom door, then stopped, changing direction toward the window instead. Fire escape. Now. As they climbed onto the metal platform, Seo-yeon heard the apartment door crash open below. Heavy footsteps and commanding voices filled Jae-won's sanctuary. Taehyun guided her down the slick metal stairs, rain soaking them both, his hand never leaving the small of her back. At the bottom, he pulled her into the shadows of an alley, his body pressed against hers to shield her from view. Their faces were inches apart, his breath warm against her cold skin, and for one impossible moment, Seo-yeon felt something she had no right to feel while grieving Jae-won. They ran through the rain-soaked streets of Seattle, Taehyun's hand firmly gripping Seo-yeon's as he navigated through alleys and side streets with practiced precision. Her lungs burned, her mind reeled, but she kept pace with him. Behind them, shouts echoed off the brick walls, and flashlight beams cut through the darkness like searchlights hunting prey. Taehyun pulled her into a recessed doorway of an abandoned warehouse, pressing her against the cold metal door. His body shielded hers completely as footsteps pounded past their hiding spot. Seo-yeon could feel his heart racing against her chest, matching the frantic rhythm of her own. "Where are we going?" she whispered once the footsteps faded. Taehyun's dark eyes met hers in the dim light, and something unspoken passed between them. Something that felt like betrayal to Jae-won's memory, yet undeniably real. "Somewhere Harrison Chen can't find you. I have a safe house across the bridge." He stepped back, creating distance that felt both relieving and disappointing. Seo-yeon clutched the red envelope tighter, her anchor to sanity in this nightmare. Every instinct screamed that trusting Taehyun was dangerous, yet Jae-won had trusted him enough to make him her guardian. That had to mean something. They reached Taehyun's car, a nondescript sedan parked 3 blocks away. As he drove toward the bridge, Seo-yeon finally opened the flash drive documents on his laptop. What she found made her stomach turn. Her father hadn't just discovered illegal activity. He had uncovered evidence that next-gen technologies was using medical AI to manipulate pharmaceutical trials, causing deaths that were ruled as natural causes. Hundreds of deaths. All for profit. And Harrison Chen orchestrated everything, using her father's research as the foundation. Jae-won spent 2 years collecting evidence to take Harrison down, Taehyun said quietly. That's all on that drive. Why didn't he just go to the police? Seo-yeon's voice cracked with frustration and grief. Taehyun's jaw tightened as he navigated through traffic. Because Harrison owns half the police department. He owns judges, politicians, media outlets. Going public without ironclad protection is suicide. He glanced at her, his expression softening. Jae-won was waiting until he had enough evidence that even Harrison couldn't bury it. He was so close, Seo-yeon. That's why they killed him. He was days away from exposing everything. The weight of Jae-won's sacrifice pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. The safe house was a modest apartment in a building that had seen better decades. Taehyun checked every room before allowing Seo-yeon inside. The space was sparse but functional, with surveillance monitors showing multiple angles of the street below. This was a place designed for hiding, for waiting, for planning. Seo-yeon set the red envelope on the small kitchen table and finally let herself feel the enormity of the last few hours. Her legs gave out, and she sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. Taehyun knelt beside her, his hand hovering uncertainly before finally resting on her shoulder. He loved you more than anything, Taehyun said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Every day, he talked about you. About how he wished he could give you a normal life, an honest relationship. He hated lying to you, Seo-yeon. It destroyed him. Seo-yeon looked up at Taehyun through her tears and saw something that shocked her. He wasn't just mourning his best friend. There was something deeper in his eyes, something that looked dangerously like longing. You loved him too, she whispered. Tae-hyun stood abruptly, turning away. We should rest. Tomorrow, we figure out how to finish what Jae-won started. Seo-yeon couldn't sleep. She lay on the small couch in the safe house, staring at the ceiling while rain continued its relentless assault on the windows. In the bedroom, she could hear Tae-hyun moving around, equally restless. The red envelope sat on the coffee table beside her, its contents burning in her mind. At 3 in the morning, she finally gave up on sleep and began sorting through the documents again. That's when she found it. A photograph tucked in the back, yellowed with age. Her father, young and smiling, standing with 2 other men. One was Harrison Chen. The other was a teenage boy who looked remarkably like Tae-hyun. That's my father. Tae-hyun's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway wearing only sleep pants, his expression guarded. Seo-yeon held up the photo, her hands trembling. Your father knew mine? Tae-hyun moved into the room, sitting on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining careful distance. They were friends. Partners in the early days of NextGen, before Harrison showed his true colors. My father died trying to expose Harrison 15 years ago. Car accident. Just like yours. The bitter irony wasn't lost on Seo-yeon. They were both children of murdered whistleblowers, both caught in Harrison Chen's web of destruction. Jae-won didn't know about this connection at first, Tae-hyun continued, his voice quiet in the dim light. When Harrison hired us for corporate security, we thought it was legitimate work. By the time we realized what we were really doing, we were in too deep. Then Harrison assigned Jae-won to watch you. Tae-hyun's eyes met hers, and the intensity there made her breath catch. Jae-won called me the night after he first saw you at that gallery opening. 3 years before he accidentally met you at the museum. He said he'd never seen anyone look at art the way you did, with such pure wonder. He was already half in love with you. Seo-yeon's chest tightened painfully. 3 years. Jae-won had watched her for 3 years before engineering their meet-cute. What about you? The question escaped before she could stop it. Tae-hyun looked away, tension radiating from his shoulders. What about me? His deflection was obvious, but Seo-yeon pressed forward, needing to understand the way he looked at her, the careful distance he maintained, the pain in his eyes. The 2 times we met. You couldn't stand to be around me. Was it because you knew the truth? Or was it something else? Tae-hyun stood abruptly, moving to the window. You should get some rest. We have a lot to do tomorrow. But Seo-yeon wasn't letting this go. She crossed the room, standing behind him. Tae-hyun, answer me. He turned, and suddenly they were too close, the air between them electric with unspoken tension. I couldn't be around you, he said roughly, because every time I saw how Jae-won looked at you, I wished someone would look at me like that. And every time I saw how you looked at him, I wished I was the one receiving that look instead. The confession hung in the air between them, dangerous and impossible. Seo-yeon's heart hammered in her chest. You wanted me? Tae-hyun's laugh was bitter and broken. I wanted what Jae-won had. A normal life. Honest love. Someone who looked at me without knowing the blood on my hands. He stepped back, creating distance again. But I loved my best friend more than I wanted those things. So I stayed away. And now he's dead protecting you, and I'm the one standing here confessing feelings I have no right to feel. Morning light filtered through the safe house windows, harsh and unforgiving. Seo-yeon pretended to sleep on the couch while Tae-hyun made coffee in the kitchen, both of them avoiding the conversation from hours earlier. His confession had changed everything and nothing simultaneously. She was mourning Jae-won, the man she loved who had lied to her for years. And now Tae-hyun, his best friend, had admitted feelings that made her question every interaction they'd ever had. The coffee smell filled the small space, and Seo-yeon finally sat up, meeting Tae-hyun's careful gaze. We need to talk about what's on that flash drive, she said, deliberately steering them towards safer territory. Tae-hyun set a mug in front of her, his fingers brushing hers briefly before he pulled away. The evidence Jae-won collected is substantial, but it's not enough on its own.
We need testimony from someone inside NextGen who can verify the documents.
He pulled up files on his laptop, all business now, the vulnerability from last night locked away.
Seo-yeon studied the pharmaceutical trial data, her father's notes in the margins. Dr. Sarah Chen.
She's listed here repeatedly.
Is she related to Harrison? Taehyun nodded grimly. His daughter.
She runs the medical division.
But according to Jae-won's notes, she's been asking questions internally. She might not know what her father really is.
Then we talked to her.
Seo-yeon's voice was firm, decisive.
Taehyun looked at her like she'd suggested walking into a lion's den.
That's exactly what Harrison expects us to do. Sarah is leverage, and he'll be watching her.
But Seo-yeon was already formulating a plan, the strategic mind that made her a successful art curator now focused on justice.
Then we don't go to her directly.
Harrison offered me a job at NextGen last month.
What if I accept it?
I could get inside, access files, talk to Sarah without raising suspicion.
Taehyun's expression darkened immediately, his protective instincts flaring. Absolutely not. Too dangerous.
Everything is dangerous now, Seo-yeon countered, leaning forward with intensity.
Jae-won died collecting this evidence. My father died trying to expose Harrison. Your father too. How many more people have to die before someone stops him?
Her voice cracked with emotion.
I can't just hide here while Harrison continues destroying lives. If I can get inside NextGen, we have a real chance.
Taehyun stood, pacing the small kitchen like a caged animal. His conflict was visible in every tense line of his body.
Finally, he turned to her. If you do this, I'm going in with you. I won't lose you too. The intensity in his words made Seo-yeon's pulse quicken. You can't. Harrison knows you were Jae-won's partner.
He'll never believe you're not involved.
Taehyun moved closer, his dark eyes boring into hers. Then I'll be your shadow.
Close enough to protect you but invisible to Harrison.
I made a promise to Jae-won, Seo-yeon. I keep my promises.
The unspoken words hung between them.
This wasn't just about a promise to a dead friend anymore.
This was about something neither of them could acknowledge while Jae-won's memory still haunted every corner of the room.
Seo-yeon looked away first, unable to handle the heat in his gaze.
Her phone buzzed, shattering the moment.
An email from Harrison Chen himself. Seo-yeon, I heard about the tragic accident with Jae-won. I'm so sorry for your loss. Please know my offer for the position at NextGen still stands. In fact, I'd like to discuss it over dinner tomorrow night if you're available. Sometimes work is the best medicine for grief. Let me help you through this difficult time. Uncle Harrison.
Seo-yeon showed Taehyun the message, and his jaw clenched.
He's testing you. Seeing if you'll run or play along.
She typed her response with steady fingers.
Thank you, Uncle Harrison. Dinner sounds perfect. I need the distraction.
Seo-yeon stood in front of the mirror in the safe house bathroom, applying makeup with hands that refused to stop shaking. Tonight she would sit across from the man who murdered her father in Jae-won, pretending to be the grieving girlfriend who needed his support. The black dress she wore felt like armor and a costume simultaneously. Behind her, Taehyun leaned against the doorframe, his reflection watching her with barely concealed worry.
You don't have to do this, he said quietly. But they both knew she did. This was the only way forward, the only path to justice that didn't end with more bodies.
Tell me again what to look for, Seo-yeon said, needing to focus on the mission rather than her fear.
Taehyun moved closer, pulling out his phone to show her photos. Harrison's office is on the top floor of NextGen Tower.
If you can get him to take you there, plant this.
He held up a device smaller than a thumb drive.
It'll give us access to his private servers.
Everything Jae-won couldn't reach will be ours.
His fingers brushed hers as he placed the device in her palm, the touch lingering longer than necessary.
Their eyes met in the mirror, and the tension between them crackled like electricity.
The restaurant Harrison chose was predictably elegant, the kind of place where Seattle's elite conducted business disguised as pleasure. Seo-yeon arrived exactly on time, her heart pounding beneath her composed exterior. Harrison stood when he saw her, his silver hair and expensive suit projecting benevolent success.
Seo-yeon, my dear. You look beautiful despite everything you've been through.
He embraced her, and it took every ounce of her acting ability not to recoil. This man had killed everyone she loved. Now she was hugging him like family, playing the role Jae-won had died to set up for her. "Thank you for meeting me, Uncle Harrison," Seo-yeon said, settling into her chair. Across the restaurant, she spotted Taehyun at the bar, nursing a drink and pretending not to watch her. His presence gave her courage she desperately needed. Harrison ordered wine, making small talk about the Seattle art scene, asking about her work at the gallery. His performance as the caring family friend was flawless, practiced. How many people had he fooled with this charming facade? How many had died never seeing the monster beneath? "I want to accept your job offer," Seo-yeon said, seizing the moment. Harrison's eyes lit up with something that looked like triumph. "Wonderful. You'll be perfect for our public relations division. Your eye for aesthetics, your father's legacy, it all fits beautifully." He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "Your father would be so proud, Seo-yeon." Seeing his daughter carry on his work at the company he helped build. The lies rolled off his tongue so smoothly. Seo-yeon forced a smile, letting him hold her hand even as her skin crawled. "Could I see the office? I'd love to know where I'll be working." Harrison's smile widened. "Of course. Why don't we go now? I'll give you a personal tour of Next Gen Tower." He signaled for the check, and Seo-yeon's pulse raced. This was it. Her chance to plant the device. Next Gen Tower gleamed against the Seattle skyline, all glass and steel ambition. Harrison's private elevator moved silently toward the top floor while Seo-yeon clutched her purse, feeling the weight of the device hidden inside. Harrison talked about company history, about her father's contributions, weaving lies into truth so seamlessly she almost believed him. "Your father was brilliant, Seo-yeon. His algorithms changed everything for us. I think about him every day." The elevator doors opened to reveal a sprawling office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This was where evil wore expensive suits and made decisions that killed people with the stroke of a pen. Impressive, isn't it? Harrison moved to the windows, his back to her. This was her moment. Seo-yeon's fingers found the device in her purse, but before she could move toward his computer, Harrison turned suddenly. "I need to be honest with you about something, Seo-yeon." Her blood turned to ice. Had he known all along? Was this a trap? Harrison's expression shifted, becoming almost vulnerable. "I know Jae-won wasn't just your boyfriend. I know he was investigating me." The world tilted beneath Seo-yeon's feet. She stood frozen, trying to calculate her next move, her next words, anything that might save her life. "Uncle Harrison, I don't understand," but he raised a hand, cutting her off. "Please, don't insult my intelligence. Jae-won worked for me for years. You think I didn't know when he turned? When he started collecting evidence?" Harrison moved closer, and Seo-yeon's hand tightened around her purse. Behind her, she knew Taehyun was blocks away, too far to help if this went wrong. "The question is, did he tell you anything before that unfortunate accident? Does his grieving girlfriend know secrets that could hurt me?" His tone remained pleasant, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. This was the real Harrison Chen, the one who ordered murders as casually as ordering wine. "Jae-won never told me anything about his work," Seo-yeon said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "I didn't even know he knew you beyond reputation." Harrison studied her face with the intensity of a predator assessing prey. The silence stretched between them, suffocating. Finally, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good. Because I'd hate for you to end up like your father, Seo-yeon. Or like Jae-won. Such tragic accidents." The admission was there, barely veiled. He was confirming what she already knew while simultaneously threatening her.
You're family to me. I want to protect you. But I can only protect people who are loyal. Seo-yeon's phone buzzed in her purse, making them both tense. She pulled it out with trembling fingers, seeing a text from an unknown number. Building security breach on floor 12. Need you immediately. Security chief. Harrison's expression darkened. I need to handle this. Wait here. He moved toward the door, then paused. Don't touch anything, Seo-yeon. This office contains very sensitive information. The door closed behind him, and she heard the lock click. She was trapped, but she also had the opportunity she needed. Seo-yeon rushed to his computer, pulling out the device with shaking hands. She plugged it into the USB port, watching the progress bar crawl across the screen with agonizing slowness. 30 seconds. 45. Her eyes darted between the computer and the door, expecting Harrison to return any moment. At 70 seconds, the device blinked green. Done. Seo-yeon yanked it out and returned to the window just as the lock clicked again. But it wasn't Harrison who entered. It was Taehyun, breathing hard, his expression fierce. That security breach was me. We need to go. Now. He grabbed her hand, and they ran toward the emergency stairs as alarms began blaring throughout the building. They burst out of Next-Gen Tower into the rain-soaked night, alarms shrieking behind them. Taehyun pulled Seo-yeon through back alleys, his hand gripping hers with desperate intensity. Behind them, security flooded the streets, flashlights cutting through the darkness like accusatory fingers. Did you get it? Taehyun asked breathlessly as they ducked behind a dumpster. Seo-yeon held up the device, and relief flooded his face. They had everything now. Every file, every email, every piece of evidence Jae-won had died trying to obtain. But Harrison knew. He knew they were coming for him, and cornered predators were the most dangerous kind. It wasn't betraying Jae-won's memory, she'd finally realized. It was honoring the future he'd died to give her. A future where she could love again, trust again, live without fear. She pressed her hand to the cold marble. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for loving me enough to set me free. I won't waste the life you gave me. Then she turned to Taehyun, who held out his hand. She took it, and together they walked away from the cemetery, into the Seattle sunshine that finally broke through the clouds. They reached the safe house as dawn broke over Seattle, both soaked and exhausted. Taehyun immediately plugged the device into his laptop, files flooding the screen faster than they could read. Evidence of murders disguised as accidents. Pharmaceutical trials manipulated to kill patients for profit. Bribes to government officials, judges, police. Harrison Chen's entire empire built on a foundation of bodies and blood money. This is it, Seo-yeon whispered, tears streaming down her face. This is what my father died for. What Jae-won died for. Taehyun's arm came around her shoulders, pulling her close, and she let herself lean into his strength, too tired to fight the comfort anymore. We need to get this to someone Harrison doesn't own, Taehyun said, already pulling up contacts on his phone. I know a federal prosecutor in Boston. She's clean, and she hates corporate corruption. He made the call while Seo-yeon continued scrolling through files, her father's name appearing again and again. Research he'd done in good faith, twisted into weapons that killed innocent people. She found emails between Harrison and his head of security, dated 3 years ago. Orders to eliminate Dr. Mitchell. Orders to assign Jae-won Kim to surveillance of the target's daughter. A backup plan if the father couldn't be silenced. She was always meant to be leverage, a pawn in Harrison's game. More files revealed the depth of Harrison's paranoia and control. He had surveillance on everyone, including his own daughter Sarah. Seo-yeon found recordings of Sarah confronting her father about irregularities in the pharmaceutical trials. Harrison's response was chilling. You're either with me or you're a liability, Sarah. Choose carefully. The recording was dated 1 week ago. Sarah Chen knew something was wrong, but she was trapped by blood and fear, just like Seo-yeon had been trapped by false family loyalty. We need to contact Sarah, Seo-yeon said suddenly. She could testify. She has access to physical evidence we don't. Taehyun's phone rang before he could respond. Unknown number. He answered on speaker, and Harrison Chen's smooth voice filled the safe house. Very impressive, Taehyun. I underestimated your loyalty to Jae-won's little mission. But here's the situation. I have Detective Marcus Brooks with me. You remember him? The detective investigating Jae-won's death? Turns out he's been asking too many questions.
A muffled sound, then Marcus's voice, strained with pain.
Don't give him anything. He's going to kill me anyway. Harrison's laugh was cold. Probably true. But the question is, will you two trade yourselves for him? You have 1 hour to bring me that device, or the good detective joins your growing list of casualties. The call ended, leaving devastating silence.
Seo-yeon looked at Taehyun, seeing her own anguish reflected in his eyes. They finally had the evidence to destroy Harrison, but he held an innocent man's life hostage. We can't give him the device, Taehyun said, but his voice lacked conviction. Seo-yeon stood, decision crystallizing. We don't have to. We give him a copy, keep the original. Send everything to the federal prosecutor before we go. Taehyun grabbed her shoulders.
Seo-yeon, if we walk into whatever trap he's set, we might not walk out. This could be it.
She met his intense gaze, seeing love and fear and desperate hope there.
Then I'm glad I'm not facing it alone.
The location Harrison sent was poetic in its cruelty. The same rain-soaked street where Jae-won died, now empty except for 3 black cars and the man who orchestrated it all. Harrison stood under an umbrella, Detective Marcus Brooks kneeling beside him with a gun pressed to his head. Seo-yeon and Taehyun approached slowly, the copied device visible in her hand. Rain fell around them like tears from heaven, washing away nothing.
I admire your predictability, Harrison called out. Love makes people so beautifully stupid. Jae-won died for it. Now you will too. But what Harrison didn't see was the federal vehicles positioned 3 blocks away, waiting for Taehyun's signal. What he didn't know was that every word he spoke was being recorded, transmitted live to prosecutors who finally had enough to move against him. Before you kill us, Seo-yeon said, her voice carrying across the wet pavement, I need to know why. Why did you kill my father? He trusted you. He built NextGen with you. Harrison's expression twisted with something ugly. Your father was weak. He wanted to stop the pharmaceutical project when he realized people were dying. Weak men don't build empires, Seo-yeon. They build obstacles. He pressed the gun harder against Marcus's head. Just like Jae-won was weak. He fell in love with you when he should have eliminated you. Weakness is a disease, and I cure diseases. The admission was everything they needed. Harrison Chen, confessing to multiple murders, his voice recorded for posterity and prosecution. Taehyun's hand found Seo-yeon's, their fingers intertwining.
Jae-won wasn't weak, Taehyun said, his voice strong and clear. He was brave enough to choose love over loyalty to a monster. He was brave enough to die protecting someone he loved. That's not weakness, Harrison. That's everything you'll never understand. Harrison's laugh was sharp and bitter. Touching. Now give me the device, or I paint this street with more blood. But Seo-yeon didn't move forward. Instead, she raised her other hand, showing her phone with a live connection to federal prosecutors. Say hello to the FBI, Uncle Harrison. They've heard everything. And they're here. Federal vehicles screamed onto the street from both directions, agents pouring out with weapons drawn. Harrison's face transformed from smug control to desperate realization in seconds. He swung his gun toward Seo-yeon, but Taehyun was faster, pulling her behind him as shots rang out. Marcus broke free in the chaos, tackling Harrison to the ground as federal agents swarmed them. It was over in moments. Harrison Chen, in handcuffs, screaming about lawyers and immunity while being pushed into a federal vehicle. Marcus, battered but alive, giving his statement. And Seo-yeon, standing in the rain with Taehyun's arms around her, finally able to breathe. 3 months later, Seo-yeon stood at Jae-won's grave, fresh flowers in her hands. The trial had been brutal, Harrison's lawyers fighting every charge, but the evidence was overwhelming. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, his empire dismantled, his victims finally vindicated. Sarah Chen had testified against her father, brave enough to choose truth over blood. Detective Marcus Brooks was recovering, planning to write a book about corporate corruption. And Seo-yeon was learning to live with the complex truth of Jae-won's love. He had lied to her, yes. But he had also loved her enough to die for her, to spend his last years building the case that would protect her and destroy the man who killed her father. I brought someone with me, Seo-yeon said softly to the headstone. I think you'd approve. Taehyun stood a respectful distance away, giving her privacy but present nonetheless. Over the past months, something had grown between them. Something built on shared grief and survival, on understanding and gentle healing.